Hey, Black women, it's your girl Cherie. I'm back here with another video. Today is a great session because I'm going to talk about 9 mistakes that I either have made or have seen made. And I just don't want you to make those mistakes in your business as you're starting, as you're growing, etc. So this will be a really quick discussion. Get your pen and paper out if you wish, or your favorite note-taking device. So the first mistake is thinking in revenues, not profits. So I had a conversation with a Black woman a couple of weeks ago, and she contacted me and said, Cherie, I want $1 million business. And I said, okay, um, tell me a little bit more about that. Do you mean $1 million gross? Gross means like revenues, right? That just comes into your company. Or do you mean $1 million net? And net is like net profits, right? $1 million take home or $1 million, I want $1 million gross revenues. And a lot of people don't decipher between the two. And one of the issues I have with social media is that there are so many people, they have these titles in videos. I have $1 million business, I have $1 million business, but they don't tell you how much they actually take home. And what I've seen as an accountant for people is that there are a lot of times where people have $1 million businesses and don't even bring home $100,000. So don't let these people on social media fool you when they say, I've got $1 million business, because that doesn't mean they're taking home $1 million. My goal is to see you bring home $200,000 in profits. That's take home pay, because that puts you at the top 10% of earners in the country. Now, if you live in some place like San Francisco or New York, 200,000 may not even be enough. But I want to see you with the top 10%. I want to see you live in a good neighborhood. I want to see your kids being able to go to the school that they deserve to go to. If your kids need private tutors in order to be able to really compete on a global scale, you get that. Also, you need money to reinvest in your business. And you have the right to be Black girl luxury in whatever form that takes. If you like to travel, I personally like to travel first class. If you like bags and shoes or whatever it is. And of course, y'all know I'm very much into the investments. Number one, having my own home. And then number two, being able to buy rental properties and do other types of investments. So a mistake that a lot of us make is we think in revenues and not profits. And that's one of the things that I want to do is I want to turn that around to ask you, how much do you want to bring into your house? And then let's reverse engineer that to figure out how much in revenues you actually need. Ladies, do you own a small business? Want to get grants or business loans, credit cards, or other types of funding? Then click my link in the description to get all the information. Number two is us underestimating your marketing and sales efforts that you're going to have to do. A lot of women do this. A lot of entrepreneurs do this, period. Especially with the upcoming recession, it's going to take you 3 times the amount of leads, of marketing, of sales efforts in order to make the income that you're looking for. So sometimes when you are marketing and selling, meaning you're bringing leads into your business and you're converting them into sales, are you talking to the right people? Are you talking to people who actually want to buy that product or service, meaning that they have a specific problem and they want that problem solved? Do the people that you're talking to actually have the money, the budget to have that problem solved? And then, are they the decision maker? If the answer is no, then you're wasting your time. You're going to need to talk to more people. Sometimes we quit because we're not talking to enough people in order to make the sales that are needed so that we can reach those profit numbers that we want. So especially with this recession coming up, you're going to have to kick up your marketing and sales efforts 3 to 10 times what you're currently doing in order to be able to make it. The next one is being disorganized. Disorganized. So I'll tell you a story. Years ago, I was working with my mother's company. I was doing her marketing and sales for her accounting firm. And because I wasn't organized, I almost lost us two big accounts back in the day. And what I mean by being organized is I had post-it notes all over the place with things that I was supposed to do. And this one specific week, there were two big things that I was supposed to do. And I did not remember to do them because the information was on post-it notes all over the place instead of being organized. And that situation scared me to the point where I got a task manager, which I still use today. And anytime there's a task that I need to do, whether it's due tomorrow or next week or a year from now, I put it into this task manager. And every day, every morning, I go into it and I see what are the things that I need to do. Ladies, do you all even know I have in there certain relatives that I need to call? And anytime I talk to them, I change the date to, hey, this relative I talk to once a month, or this relative I text once a month, or things in my house. Like this is how this is how I am right now with it. Things in my house, there, are certain things in my house that I'm in charge of. And once a year, the maintenance and repair people come to check on it. I have that in my task organizer as well. Now, I use a system called Toodly-Do. It's kind of, it's not the most glamorous, but it works for me. But you can select your own system. When you get a lead through the door, do you have a CRM? A CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management System. Do you have a project management system if you need that for being able to track your current clients and where they are in the process of having their work done? If you are disorganized, this can cost you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year. So I cannot say it enough that being organized is super important. Next mistake that a lot of women make is underreporting profits on your taxes. Now, you may say, Cherie, I don't want to pay taxes. The government doesn't know what to do with my money. And this is true. I'm not going to deny that. But here's the issue. We need to think about our businesses when it comes to the long game. And there are two major issues that you have when you underreport your profits and your revenues on your taxes. Number one is if you ever want to buy a house, the mortgage broker is going to ask you for the last 2 years of taxes. And if you don't show that you make enough money on those taxes, then you're not going to be able to buy a home. Okay. Number two, if you want to grow your business, let's say that you've been in business for 5 years and you decide you want to grow your business and you go to the bank is going to ask you for 2 years of tax returns. And if they don't see that you've made revenues and profits on your tax returns, you're not going to be able to get that business loan. So let's say you have an opportunity to expand your business, but you need $500,000. Underreporting your revenues and your profits on your taxes, that's going to cause you to be told no. I work with people who get funding. And a lot of us as Black people can't get funding because we're underreporting our profits on our taxes. Just pay the taxes, especially if you have a long-term gain, a long-term goal. Number three, and this is a bonus, if you ever decide you want to sell that business one day, there are people who are selling their businesses for anywhere from $25,000, $50,000, $100,000, couple $1 million, $20 million, et cetera, depending on the type of business you have, what the revenues are, profits, et cetera. If you decide to sell that business one day, you may need to sell that business to somebody who needs to get a bank loan or an SBA loan in order to buy the business from you so that you can cash out. What is the bank going to do? They're going to ask you for the last 2 to 3 years of your taxes. so that they can approve the loan for the buyer. If you're reporting your revenues and your profits on your taxes, you're not going to be able to sell that business. So this is a primary mistake that we're making that I want us to get out of. The next one, not understanding how business credit works. Now, I'm not talking about people who say, oh, you know, get a Uline credit account or get all of these crazy credit accounts in order to build up a business credit. I'm talking more so, like I talked about on the last slide, with not understanding how the information that you need to have on your taxes, on your profit and loss statement, the operations you need to have within your business, so that when you're ready to make a move in order to buy some commercial property, or you want to get a business loan in order to grow your business, you're not turned down, because not every no is due to racism. Sometimes your no is due to the fact that you didn't have certain things in place 2, 3, 4 years ago, so that the bank could say no, could say yes today. So it's important for you to understand how business credit works overall. The second thing I will say about business credit is you can get business credit today when you're starting. You can get anywhere from $5,000, $10,000, all the way up to $50,000, $60,000. But it does take at least decent personal credit. You will have to sign a personal guarantee. There are ways for you to get business credit cards and certain business loans without it going on your personal credit, but they will check your personal credit. So it is important for us, and I know that many of us have credit issues, but it is important for us to maintain good credit. It's also important for us to, the people that I work with that have credit cards and loans and things like that, they need to see at least on your taxes that you've made $50,000 for the past couple of years. Otherwise, you won't get a loan, or you won't get that credit card that could have $40,000 on it for you to use in order to expand your business or get property or whatever. If you don't understand the rules of the game, when it comes time for you to make a move, you're not going to be able to do it. The next thing, not having a one-page business plan. So the business plan is really meant to be a roadmap and a guide and a checklist for what you are doing within your business. So things like, what's the market size? How many people within the market am I trying to capture? What's the average amount of money that each person would spend with me? What's my revenue goal? What's my staffing goal? What's that staffing plan? What's the operation goal, the customer journey? What's my startup budget? How am I going to market this business? All of those things can be on a one-page business plan. And what I do is I have my one-page business plan, it's actually 2 pages, tacked to my wall in my office. And every day it's in front of me. I look at it, I make sure I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do so that I'm on the right track to hit my revenue goals and my business goals for the year. If you don't have a plan, then you don't have a roadmap. And you won't know what you're trying to hit, and you won't know the process you're supposed to be taking in order to ensure that you get there. And more importantly, if you're not hitting your goals, you won't have a reference point to go back to say, hey, are there things that I said at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of this time period that I said that I would do that I'm not doing? Because I can tell you, there was a time when I was not doing as well and I was veering off to the left and the right. When I went back and read my business plan, I said, wow, I had a list of marketing things that I said I was going to do, and I'm only doing half of these things. So during that time period, for me, it was like, boom, okay, let me go back to actually putting this in a simple checklist that I could look at every day and make sure that I'm doing these things. The next mistake that Black women make is lack of personal finance skills for entrepreneurs. So I've said this in another video, I'll say it again. At the very least, you want to reduce your personal debt as much as possible. So no personal credit cards as much as possible. Your student loans are fine. Having a mortgage is fine, because I do believe Black women need to own a house. But any other, especially consumer debt that we have, we want to knock that down to zero, right? The second thing is not having savings. And what I've done is I have a separate savings account, and I do auto debit every other week to that savings account. I don't depend on myself to move the money over, because I'll never want to move it over. At the very least, have those two things. And that way you can have, hopefully over time, enough of a cushion so that if you have a month or two where you need to, dig into it, which I've had to do, you're not like hyperventilating, because desperate people do desperate things. And what we don't want you to be is a desperate entrepreneur. Now, over time, your personal finance is you get so many skills, so many entrepreneurial skills that you run a really, really good business. And then you take a portion of that money and you put it into two types of investments. Number one are cash flowing investments. So that's whether you want to have a rental property or dividend stocks or tax liens. Again, not financial advice. I should say that, not financial advice, but do your research. But number one, you want to have cash flowing assets, so that over time you will be able to retire and know that those cash flowing assets are feeding you, giving you money every single month or quarter or year, whatever the dividend structure is. So that's number one. And then number two, you want to also have assets that appreciate as well. Appreciate just means goes up in value. So it could be certain stocks that you have. Maybe you're purchasing some technology, high growth stocks, and you know that you're going to be in that stock for 10 years. You could be doing options trading or things like that. Again, do your own research, figure out what mix works best for you. And the mix is going to change as you get older. As you get older, you'll probably most likely move out of a lot of appreciating stuff and more into cash flow stuff or preserving your capital. But it is important for us to have personal finance skills and a game plan for retirement. The final mistake that a lot of Black women make is that you don't have an exit plan. And I kind of talked about it a little bit in the past slide, but you don't want to be 70, 80 years old having to work. You could spend the next 5, 10, 15 years going hard for your business with an exit plan, with a vision for your life, and then be able to say, okay, now I'm ready to either open up another business or coast or retire or whatever it is. So there are a couple of ways that you can retire. You can have the exit plan for your business. So number one, the business itself can give you so much money in dividends, meaning net profits, take home pay, et cetera, and you invest it wisely so that you have a certain amount of rentals, a certain amount of money in dividend stocks, et cetera, so that you are able to retire and have enough monthly income to pay for your living expenses and also your lavish retirement life. So that's number one. Another exit plan that you can have is that you want to sell the business. Not all businesses are saleable, right? But you could set up your business where it runs like a well-oiled machine. It has processes, it has employees, and then you sell the business to somebody else. Now, I will say this. If you are able to get your business to $20 million plus, your $20 million, revenue plus, you get to a point where you're eligible for what they call private equity. And that's where the big dollars come in with regards to an exit. Obviously, I have to say this is not for everyone's business. It does depend on what industry you're in, et cetera. But $20 million plus gets you noticed by the bigger boys. $50 million plus really gets you noticed, but they're starting to come down to 20 million. If you're anywhere between 5 million and $20 million, there's a group of people called micro private equity, and they also will pay, everyone's looking for a bargain, so I won't say they'll pay more, but they'll pay strategically for your business. So you could walk out with a few $1,000,000 as an exit or even more. If you're doing anything below $2 million, you're probably going to get somebody else who wants to be a solopreneur, which means they have to go to the bank, things like that. So that's just something to think about with regards to an exit plan and how big your business can get and what you need to do in order to think about your exit from your business. So again, number one, you get so much money in dividends that you set up a good retirement for yourself. Number two, you could sell the business itself. Number three is you could do something called an initial public offering, which means that your business, you sell the stocks on the stock market. That is a possibility. You'll have to be a relatively larger business for that. But I know a couple of people who are setting up their businesses in order to go on the stock market. So, so those are three major ways. You can be acquired. You can cash out with so much dividends that you have a good retirement account and then just close the business, or you can do an IPO. Okay, everybody, I made a mistake. This is the last one. Not knowing when to quit and when to stay the course. So if you are thinking that your business is not doing well, there's two major reasons why it could be the case. Number one is you're not doing all the things that you're supposed to do with the level of intensity that you're supposed to do them. So it's about not just working hard, but doing the right things and working at them continuously enough and with enough effort in order for them to work. So that's number one. Or if something is not working, it could be that you just have a bad business. You either have a business that has a product or service that nobody wants, or they want it, but they don't want to pay for it, or they're just not interested. The market is just telling you no. It's important to know when to stay and when to fold. And that's a very difficult decision for a lot of us. But we have to be honest about when to stay the course, when something is working, but you're not putting enough effort into it, or you haven't found quite the right market yet, or when it's time to fold. So yeah, so those are the 10 steps, or sorry, the 9 steps, the 9 mistakes that Black women make when starting and growing a business. I hope it says something today that benefit you, that blesses you, and I will see you on the next video.